This is Robert Keens with goldsilverpros.com. You have joined the North American Monetary Metals Summit, and we have here a very special guest, David Morgan, of the Morgan Report, to discuss the precious metals and cryptocurrencies. David, how are you doing today?
Rob, I'm doing really well. It's been very, very busy week, but I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you joining the conference. I know that I've been following you a long time. You're one of the first people that I followed when I got into precious metals 10 years ago. So do appreciate you jumping on the conference with us.
My pleasure. Thanks. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start. And this is a silver discussion. We're going to focus probably on the precious metals and, of course, the crypto interface. But what I want to ask everybody is this, or why is this the final leg in the precious metals market? And we'll set a record, and I believe both are true. I don't have time to go in a long discussion, but most markets go up in three main phases, 5 waves, if you will, for the Elliott types. Wave up, and then down, and wave up, and then down, and then the last and final one. This is where I'm famous for saying the 90% of the move comes in the last 10% of the time, which actually I learned from one of the more well-established Wall Street types that works in the precious metals arena. Back to the silver Dow ratio, you can see that we are at a low versus where it was in 1980. Are we going to achieve that same silver Dow ratio or gold Dow ratio? I don't know, but I want to present the idea that stocks are overvalued, metals are still at this point in time undervalued, even with gold making a new nominal high, which means the 1900 plus gold price in US dollars needs to achieve about $2,750 in today's fiat to equal what it was worth in 1980 at $850, and that's using government statistics, which in my studied view are really invalid. They have really played down the inflation rate by eliminating energy costs and food from the equation. So the two things that humans need most, they eliminate from the CPI about the 1980-ish range or time frame. So that's something to bear in mind. I stick to both fundamentals and I do some technical work. So this is from Shadow Stats. I sourced it. I say it in the lower right if you can't see it. I'm not saying gold's going to 600, but for those that are familiar with Cliff High's work, he's used that number 600 time and time again on a true inflation basis based upon the 1980 metrics. If you accounted for inflation under those metrics, you would have to see about $600 silver today to equal the $50 silver in 1980. Moving on, I want to compare the two markets, the 1970s bull market to today's. I know this graph goes to about 2019. So really, I think we're still, believe it or not, kind of the consolidation, long wait, so to speak. We already had a brief interlude from the $9 level all the way to 50, certainly quite a run. A lot of people made a lot of money and actually left the market, and good for them. I've stuck it out during this grind that we've had from the peak of around 50 all the way down to interday 12 that was very recently, just back in March. And now we are marching much higher. We've already been up to as high as 26 in the aftermarket, and there's a lot in store for both the gold and silver markets. So here's what I want to emphasize, this idea that 90% of the move comes in the last 10% of the time. Is this a perfect scenario? The answer is absolutely not, but the idea is sound. We've been in a bull market for gold since 2000, so 20 years. The bull market started September 2003 for the silver market, so roughly 17 years. And if we compare it to the 1980 market, some say it was a 10-year market. I say it was 15, but you could take your pick. The monetary price of silver was $1.29. I put $1.30 there to make it simple, and it went to 50 as a round number. But if you actually examine what happened, in the total move was $48, and 42 of those dollars came in the last 13 months of a 180-month move. So if you do the simple arithmetic you could do for fourth grade, what you'll find is that it was 87.5% of the appreciation came in 7% of the time. So the reason I want everyone to understand this is because I'm getting call after call, email after email, interview after interview. It's too late. Silver's gone from 12 to 26. I've missed the boat. No, I don't think you have. It's still, I'm not saying something's going to 600. I have said it's going to 100, so I can't back out of that. I said that in 2003 when silver was around 5. I said it was going to go to 100 in fiat. I don't want you to focus too much on the dollar price, because the actual truth of the matter is, in a unbacked fiat frenzy fiasco, printing money so fast there's not enough trees to put that much money in physical form, it's actually sky's the limit. It's really infinity from a truth perspective. It's not going to go there. You're not going to get absolute zero in the dollar. You're going to see a new monetary system enacted, which is taking place before our very eyes. It's taking place in other jurisdictions. And of course, there's the Fed coin that's been batted around, and on and on. I don't have time to go into depth on those, but I do want to paint the big picture view for everyone. So what happened was, it was an 800% gain in that final year. I think we're looking at something similar this time. And so 26 isn't too high. 30 at some point won't be too high. 35 at some point won't be too high. But I want to make people aware that we're not going to see a palladium situation, which means we're not going to see this sky high move and then flatten and do an inverse L or a half T, where we go way, way up and then it just flat lines at that very high price. The reason palladium does that is there's so much industrial demand that demand alone keeps it at that high level. And until the demand supply dynamics change, where let's say we move into electric vehicles and there's not as much demand for palladium for catalytic converters, then that will change the price support and will change the supply demand metrics. Silver is being bought for monetary purposes, hedging, safe haven, and all kinds of reasons, but it's not all at the margin is being bought for, let's call it, investment or monetary purposes, which means that almost everyone that's purchased it isn't going to hold it for industrial reasons. They're going to hold it for profit. And that means that the market will spike. There'll be enough excess that people will want out, and that silver will come back in the market at some price, probably much higher. So let's make that very clear. So is it possible the next leg up could be led by the cryptocurrencies with asset-backed precious metal coins? I'm asking the question, and I really do not know. What I do know that the monetary field has shifted monumentally since the advent of Bitcoin, and it's becoming stronger and stronger by the day, and it's being backed primarily now by mainstream financial stalwarts such as brokerage houses, some of the better, let's say, brains in the industry. A lot of really talented people have devoted to this sector. And then again, if you sniff around, you're going to hear about things like the Fed coin. And there's been regulation implemented into the space. So there's a lot to be said about the blockchain going into the next way that people will exchange, let's say, their labor for a monetary instrument of some type to be used in the marketplace. So can precious metals and blockchain marry? And of course, the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. And there are several that have been done. This is one that I am an affiliate with, and I did put up some silver at the beginning of this load project. This was implemented on a silver-only platform that has changed. This thing's been going for at least 3 years. And like any business mind out there, any woman or man that's been in business knows that you start with plan A and things change. And this has as well. It's still precious metals backed. It's implemented more than just silver now. But in the initiation, it was silver only, and you could not buy in with fiat. You had to contribute silver to what we call the mother load or the monetary mass, take your pick, the metal amount. And that's what funded it. And it's gone a long, long ways. I don't have a lot of time to explain it. And in fact, I'm really not the one to explain it because I am not the company. I am supporting the company. Mm-hmm. And it's best to go to their website, and you can get there at load.one, or if you want to attribute it to my lecture here, it's ag.load.one. Yes, almost any URL works today, so it'll be www.ag.lode.one, and you can get the video and take a look. It's a new paradigm, which there's several out there. I'm not saying this is the best. It's the one I've kind of staked not only my some of my silver on, but somewhat my reputation. And there are several that have come and gone due to regulations or not having a good business plan. If you don't make a profit, you cannot fund the software developments, the server, the storage space, pay the vaulting fees, all the stuff that goes into an online business. So there is a margin, just like a coin dealer, between the bid and ask, the buy and sell. And that's normal business activity. It exists throughout the entire precious metals arena. And anyone that thinks they're getting free storage think again, it might not show up. You might not get billed for it, but it's built in there somewhere. It's built into the spread. It's built into a maintenance fee. It's built into something. So it's there. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything has a price. Well, I think this one's a little more upfront about it than, let's say, some others where people tell me. So they claim it's the world's first. I won't, but this is off of their website. Lowe's building the world's first cryptographic silver money system that will provide a direct relationship to silver bullion. Again, you have to go to their website, watch the videos, but it's based in grams, and that's about it. I'm sure I've generated some questions, Rob. I'll do my best to field them, and please don't be offended if I defer to the website often. I really can speak about the project, but not directly for the company, and I'm sure you appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah, I've definitely taken a look at Load. It seems to be very interesting. I know that we've started to have a few precious metals backed cryptocurrencies in the market. How do you feel about those versus what is rumored maybe to be a Fed coin or government issued coin?
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
think
I'm
that the US
very,
government-
very strong on, let's call it a libertarian bent. And I think money should be a free market just like everything else. So I think that the people should have the right, the absolute natural right, or what I call God-given right, to form their own basis for a monetary instrument that they agree. It doesn't have to be everybody. If there's 0.004% of the people that want to use Load in their transactions between themselves and a merchant that's willing to accept silver as payment, final payment, then we should be able to do that. So I am very favorable to any currency or currency alternative to, let's call it, the banking elite's established way of doing business. My fear, Rob, is that they're so powerful and they have so much control, especially over the cognitive map, the way people think, that most people can't think outside the box. They're going to say, oh, well, I've got the Fed coin, but I would never take another one of those cryptos that isn't the Fed coin because that's for money laundering. And so they're going to be brainwashed. But those of us that are free thinkers, free market thinkers, understand the reality of what the let's say Mockingbird press is. It spouts out a great deal of fake news about 99.9% of the time, and can stand up and act as individuals and adults and don't have to be treated like children and be told what to do every step of the way. We'll be able to hopefully break away, and not just in the Load project, several others to their liking. As far as me personally, I'm in this one at a good level, not a significantly large level where I could get hurt badly. I want to see it come to fruition where it's adopted by a lot of the unbanked in, let's say, Indonesia as an example, and a lot of the millennials that don't trust the system, and rightfully so. So my wish, Rob, is for a monetary system that's backed by something tangible that people agree on voluntarily, and is a huge base that is people only, power to the people rather than power to the banking elite. That's what I want to see. And this is one of many. I hope there's plenty out there, and the market can decide which one gets the most votes. Not me. I haven't got a stake in it as other than the one I'm invested in, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't be invested a lot more as time moves on. I just fear that the authorities are going to put the nix on some of these one way or another, and really they have no right to under natural law, but under they taking control by writing something down on a piece of paper and then having the guns behind it to enforce something that they just made up is the way the world works presently. I'm certainly well aware of that.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned natural law. I had this conversation at a restaurant yesterday at lunchtime with somebody. We were talking about all the closures we had in Texas for bars. and for certain types of businesses. And then the way that they're closing them is they're issuing these executive orders, and then which are unconstitutional because the executive order doesn't have the power to shut down a business. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives it that right. Executive order is supposed to be used in order to direct personnel underneath that executive and how to support the existing laws on the books, not to create new laws. But they're doing that, and they're using the TABC, which is Texas Alcohol Commission, to threaten these restaurants that either you shut down or we'll pull your liquor license. So that certainly is not supported by the Constitution. So I'm certainly a big constitutionalist. I believe in constitutional money, gold and silver. The fiat money is not constitutional money. Neither would a Fed coin be. Do you think that we'll ever get back to constitutional money, or what do you see maybe in the future when the fiat system finally dies?
Boy, that's a really tough one. So people, please take it as more or less a guess. I think we could have a bifurcation. What does that mean? It means a split between those of us that are not only speak the ideals, but walk the talk, that may be removed from a system where you might be required to prove that you are within the new system or not. And there'll be some people that are so strongly convicted that they'll refuse it, and they'll have to make it on their own, which means, off-grid living, perhaps growing their own food, perhaps animal husbandry, trading skill sets. I don't know, but I actually believe that there are enough people that are that strong-willed and that convicted that we will see some type of bifurcation. At least potentially it's there. So there will be a refusal by some amount that will basically say, no, it's not for me. You can have your Fed coin. I don't want anything with it. Hopefully it'll just be more or less anonymous, where you could be in, let's say, cryptos that are precious metals backed or not, and go about your business. But my fear is that the authorities will say, well, Fed coin is the only coin accepted to get a mortgage. It's the only coin accepted to get a car loan. It's the only coin accepted to fill out an application to rent an apartment. It's the only coin available to travel with. See what I mean? That's what now I've said that to other crypto people, and they've said, I'm way off base. And these are people as smart in the crypto space than I am. I wouldn't say I'm smarter than they are when it comes to authoritarianism, but I've lived it a lot longer than most of my critics. So am I right or am I wrong? I think it remains to be determined, but I certainly know how these elite think, and they're control freaks. They could care less about money. I know that sounds absurd with all these billionaires running around, but once you get to 10 billion or 50 billion or 100 billion, does it really matter? No, it really matters how much control they have. That's their game. So back to you, Rob.
Yeah, and for the cryptocurrencies for a moment, for people who don't think that the government can control people of crypto, there was an MIT paper that came out not too long ago, about a year ago. It basically said everything can be tracked in Bitcoin or some of these other ledger systems because it has a transaction history. And the only thing that they need to do is tie it to your banking account. Because how do you get into crypto? Well, you have to transfer it from the financial system. There aren't any completely anonymous ways to get into these crypto coins. And with a simple warrant, bench warrant, or under FISA, they don't even have to have a warrant. They can just go look at your bank accounts and say, okay, we know that you're tied to this Bitcoin account or this whatever account, so they can track you. So cryptocurrency isn't really an anonymous way to transact business, and they can control if they want. They can create a law at the stroke of a pen, and they can control it. Going back, last question.
Let me stop you there and just thank you publicly, because I said that in the short form, not as eloquently as you just did, Rob, at the Acapulco conference a couple times, which is filled with crypto millionaires, these younger people, and good for them. I want everyone for happy, joyous, and free. I want love, peace, and happiness everywhere. I want us all to get along. Super idealistic, but the truth is the truth. And when I gave that short version, I was kind of ridiculed. And this is because people they're not deep. It's surface only. They don't really dig to find out what the truth is. And the truth is, if you got a URL, and even if it's not a VPN, if they want to figure out what bank account bought that crypto, as you said, they're going to find out. And I made that point. So thank you for, I would say, backing me up, just making the point. I want to go and give it back to you, but I really want to emphasize that because, and I don't mind being made fun of, or whatever. But I don't like it when people just are so biased that and smug that they're believing something out of ignorance rather than really seeking what the truth is. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just for people that don't know my background, people that may be new to the conference, I have a 25-year history of being in the tech space. I have 3 degrees in the field, including a master's in information security. So when I actually look at the cryptocurrencies, I look at the white papers and I can actually understand the technical aspects of them. So I do have much more on my site, and much more will be coming about the cryptos from somebody who's a technologist and who understands it at that level. Last question, David. I know that you have to go and appreciate the time that you've given us. I wanted to get back to the fiat system here for a moment. What are your thoughts on the Fed printing, and how much longer do you think this lasts before this system kind of blows up?
Yeah, another tough one. You know, I've been good at calling the top in the silver market, pretty crappy at calling the bottom. I called the bottom a long time ago at 1813 was the exact print. I said, that's it. It spiked to that level, came right back up on strength. And it actually was the bottom for 14 months. And then, of course, it started down below that level, as we all know.
Yeah.
So my thinking, I've been saying publicly and privately in my private premium service, you know, 2, 3, 4 years, but I don't know now. I just put out a video for my premium members, and I said this thing could go as quickly as a year and a half. I mean, the strength in the silver market right now, what's been going on, I really think that we're going to be in a situation where this thing could accelerate, you know, further from this starting point. So I'm saying if you're not in, you should get in. And, you know, I've told everybody forever, I mean, back when silver was 14, buy, you know, anything that you buy below 20 is going to prove to be, you know, a good move. And of course, once it blasted through 1950, it got to 26 within a matter of a few weeks. So I'll say it. I mean, I don't like to have people buy high, but what's high? Is 30 high if we're going to 600? Is 30 high if we're going to 100? I'd say not really. I'd say not to rush in right now, but if you don't have any, you should buy some here. And I'd say you're probably fairly safe buying up to 30 US. After that, you know, let the public and the, you know, whatever come in, and we could get a big whipsaw. You know, we get up to 30 without much interference, and that whipsaws back down to 22 or something and stays there long enough to scare people out and then starts back up. I don't know. I know silver can surprise even me, and I've watched it almost daily for over 40 years. So if there's anybody that's got ice water in their veins about silver's moves up, down, and going nowhere, it's yours truly.
David, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining the conference.
Great. If you don't mind, I'd just like to take a couple minutes and just say, if you're not familiar with my work, go to themorganreport.com, get on our free newsletter. Certainly check out the blog, interviews like this that are publicly available. I post them for your convenience. And on the blog channel, on the upper right-hand side, there's links to the Twitter feed, the YouTube feed, the LinkedIn, and Facebook. So if you're interested in any of that social media, it's available on the blog page. Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.